The iron gates groaned as they slid open. Ethan stepped forward, the chains around his wrists clinking with every move. The air was hot and heavy, filled with the smell of dust, blood, and something rotten. Before him stretched a massive arena, its stone walls towering high above. Thousands of alien faces looked down from the stands, their strange eyes glinting with hunger for violence. They shouted in a language Ethan only half understood, but their meaning was clear. They wanted a kill. Guards with jagged armor shoved him forward into the center of the fighting ground. The sunlight beat down harshly, making the sand under his boots feel like burning coals. Across the arena, on a raised platform, sat Vera, the warlord of this planet. Her skin was a deep metallic blue, her armor adorned with bones from fallen enemies. She leaned on the armrest of her black throne, staring at him with cold, sharp eyes. When the crowd's roar softened, she stood, her voice booming across the arena through hidden amplifiers. "Why aren't you trembling, human?" she called, her tone mocking and cruel. "One word from me, and my pet will devour you." The crowd exploded with laughter and cheers, some banging weapons against the railings. Ethan didn't answer right away. He just stood there, breathing slowly. His eyes locked on hers. He wasn't shaking. He wasn't even blinking much. That alone made the crowd curious. Vera's lips curled into a smile, the kind of smile a predator gives before the final bite. With a flick of her hand, she signaled. To the shadows behind her throne, from the darkness came the sound of metal scraping against stone, followed by a deep, rumbling growl. Chains rattled. Something huge moved in the shadows of a massive barred cage. The noise echoed across the arena, and even the rowdiest of the crowd fell silent for a moment. The gate of the cage lifted slowly, each clank of the mechanism making the tension thicker. Inside, two glowing eyes appeared first, then another pair. Above them, the creature stepped into the light, its body covered in thick, armored scales, each plate overlapping like a living shield. Its mouth was a cavern of jagged teeth, and when it opened, a low growl vibrated in Ethan's chest. The beast was twice the size of a warhorse, with claws that dug into the sand like knives. The air seemed to bend with the heat of its breath. The crowd began chanting its name, a guttural alien word that made Ethan's ears ring. Vera raised her hand again, silencing them. "Last chance, human," she said, her voice dripping with mockery. "Fall to your knees, beg for mercy, and maybe I'll let you live." Ethan's voice was calm, steady, and loud enough for everyone to hear. "It's not my first time facing death," he said. The words seemed to ripple through the audience, making them murmur. Vera tilted her head, amused. "Then let's see how many deaths you can face in one day." She snapped her fingers, and the beast roared so loud the arena walls seemed to shake. It stepped forward, each movement slow but deliberate. As if savoring the moment before the kill, Ethan's heart pounded, but his face stayed calm. He took a single step back, his eyes never leaving the beast's. The creature's nostrils flared, and it gave a strange, low sound. Not exactly a growl, but not friendly either. The crowd leaned forward, expecting to see blood within seconds. Sand crunched under Ethan's boots as he shifted his stance. Ready for whatever came next, the beast's tail lashed against the ground, spraying dust into the air. Vera watched closely, eager to see the human's body torn apart. But something about Ethan's stillness seemed wrong to her. Most prey would be panicking by now. But he was studying the beast like a hunter watching another predator. The air between them felt heavy, like a storm was about to break. The crowd began chanting again, their voices rising. The beast crouched low, muscles tensing. In the stands, even the smallest aliens leaned forward, eyes wide. Then, with a deafening roar, the creature lunged, its massive jaws opening wide enough to swallow Ethan whole. Time seemed to slow for a heartbeat. Ethan moved, not in panic, but with sharp, controlled speed. The scene froze in the minds of everyone watching, human and alien alike, as the first clash between man and monster began. The creature's roar tore through the arena like thunder, shaking the very stones beneath Ethan's feet. The sound was so deep it felt like it was rattling his bones. The crowd erupted into a wild frenzy, some stomping their feet, others pounding weapons against the metal railings. They wanted blood, and they wanted it now. The beast's breath was hot and foul, like the air from a furnace mixed with rotting meat. Drool dripped from between its jagged teeth, sizzling when it hit the hot sand. It circled Ethan slowly at first. Head low, muscles rippling under its scaled armor. Its 4 eyes never left him, each one glowing faintly in the sunlight. Ethan's hands were still bound with chains, the metal biting into his wrists. The guards had left him with no weapon, no armor, only the clothes on his back. But his eyes stayed calm, focused, watching the beast's every movement. Vera leaned forward in her throne, her fingers tapping the armrest in anticipation. She had seen this beast rip apart seasoned warriors in seconds. This human would be no different, or so she thought. The beast suddenly lunged, faster than its massive body should allow. Sand exploded under its claws as it aimed for Ethan's chest. Ethan twisted sideways at the last possible moment, feeling the wind of the beast's passing brush against his face. The crowd gasped. Most humans didn't survive the first strike. The beast skidded to a stop, tail lashing furiously, spraying sand in all directions. It let out another roar, this one sharper, angrier, echoing off the stone walls. Ethan's eyes narrowed, and for the briefest moment, a memory flashed in his mind. A different world. A smaller creature, its leg caught in a hunter's trap. It had made that same sharp roar then. A sound of pain and fear, not rage. The memory vanished as the beast charged again, jaws snapping shut inches from Ethan's arm. The crowd was on its feet now, shouting, screaming. Some cheering for the beast, others for the human who refused to fall. Ethan ducked under the creature's sweeping claws, his chains clinking loudly. He rolled in the sand, coming up to his knees just as the beast turned to strike again. Its shadow fell over him like a storm cloud. Ethan's heart was pounding, but not from fear, from calculation. He studied the beast's gait, its breathing, the way its eyes shifted before it attacked. It was testing him just as much as he was testing it. Vera's smirk faltered slightly. She didn't like how long this was taking. The beast reared up, front claws raised high, and slammed them into the sand where Ethan had been standing moments before. The impact sent a shockwave through the arena floor, throwing dust into the air, through the haze. Ethan's voice came low, almost a whisper, but clear. A word, strange and alien, slipped from his lips. The beast froze, its head tilting slightly, its growl rumbling lower. Unsure, Vera frowned, her eyes narrowing. Ethan repeated the word, louder this time, his tone firm, commanding. The crowd went silent, unsure of what they were witnessing. The beast stepped back, claws digging into the sand, its 4 eyes locked on Ethan. It didn't attack, not right away. Vera stood from her throne, her voice cutting through the quiet. "What did you just say to my beast, human?" she demanded. Ethan didn't answer, his attention still on the creature before him. He took a slow step forward, chains rattling, his gaze never breaking from the beast's. Another low sound came from the creature, not quite a growl this time. The crowd murmured, some leaning forward, others whispering in confusion. Ethan knew the moment was fragile. One wrong move and the beast would rip him apart. He let the silence stretch, then spoke again in that same strange tongue. The beast's breathing slowed. Its tail stopped thrashing. It blinked, once, twice. As if recognizing him, the noise in the arena swelled again. But it was different now, not just bloodlust, but curiosity. Vera's eyes darted between Ethan and her pet, suspicion growing. "You faced one of its kind before, haven't you?" she hissed. Ethan still didn't answer her, his focus locked on the creature. He knew this was no ordinary fight, and if he played this right, it might not be a fight at all. The beast let out one last roar, but this time it wasn't aimed at him. It echoed through the arena like a warning to everyone else, and in that moment, Ethan realized the battle had just changed completely. The beast's roar faded into a low rumble. It stood still for a moment, massive chest rising and falling, eyes locked on Ethan like it was trying to decide what he was. The crowd grew restless, shouting for blood, their voices echoing off the stone walls. Vera's fingers tightened on the armrest of her throne, her patience wearing thin. She raised her hand and made a sharp gesture, a signal the beast had been trained to obey without question. But instead of charging, the creature hesitated, its claws flexing against the sand. Ethan felt the shift in its body, the uncertainty. And he knew this was his chance. He stepped slowly to the side, moving in a half circle, forcing the beast to turn and keep him in its sight. The chains on his wrists clinked softly, and he could feel the eyes of thousands on him. Then, without warning, the beast lunged, its body moving with terrifying speed. Ethan dropped low, the rush of air from its jaws brushing past his head. The crowd gasped, some cheering, some cursing. The beast spun, swinging its tail like a whip, the blow powerful enough to break bones. Ethan jumped back, sand flying under his boots, but the tail grazed his side, sending a sharp pain through him. He gritted his teeth, refusing to show weakness. Vera's smile returned. She thought she saw the first crack in his composure. The beast crouched again, muscles rippling, its four eyes narrowing. 'Twas done testing now. It meant to kill. Ethan's gaze darted to the ground where a broken spear lay half buried in the sand. One end was jagged, the wood splintered, but it could serve as a weapon. The beast charged again, and Ethan ran toward it instead of away. At the last second, he dove to the side, rolling across the sand and snatching up the spear as he rose. The crowd roared at the sudden change. The beast turned, growling deep. But Ethan held the spear low, not in an attack position. He took a slow breath, then spoke again, that strange word, the one that had made the beast hesitate before. The creature froze mid-step, head tilting. Its growl shifted in tone. Uncertain, confused, Vera rose to her feet, eyes wide with disbelief. "That is not possible," she muttered under her breath. Ethan took another step forward, the spear still low, his eyes never leaving the beast's. The crowd went silent again, sensing something unnatural was happening. The beast's breathing slowed, and for a moment, its massive shoulders relaxed. Ethan knew he had its attention. But he also knew trust was fragile. The wrong move could end with him torn apart in front of everyone. He shifted his grip on the spear, then slowly tapped the butt of it against the ground. A rhythm, soft but steady. The beast's ears twitched. At the sound, it took a slow step toward him, the chains on its neck clinking softly. Gasps rippled through the arena. Vera's voice cut through the silence, sharp and angry. "Enough of this game, kill him," she shouted. The beast flinched at the command, its eyes flicking between Vera and Ethan. The tension snapped with a roar that shook the air. The creature lunged again, but this time Ethan was ready. He sidestepped, the spear sweeping up in a smooth motion, not to stab, but to redirect. The spear shaft pressed against the side of the beast's jaw, guiding its massive head past him. It stumbled, not expecting resistance that wasn't meant to pierce. The crowd exploded with noise. No one had ever dared to control the beast's movement before. Ethan turned quickly, bringing the spear around again, this time to block the beast's claw swipe. The impact rattled his arms, but he held his ground. Sand swirled around them as they moved, one man, one monster, circling in a deadly dance. Ethan spoke the word again, louder, almost like a command. The beast froze, chest heaving. Eyes locked on him with a strange recognition. Vera's face darkened, the realization hitting her. This was not a random fight. The human knew something. She didn't, and that made him dangerous. The crowd didn't know what to think. Were they watching a battle, or the beginning of something else entirely? Ethan lowered the spear slightly and took one deliberate step forward. The beast didn't attack. Instead, it lowered its massive head, the tips of its claws resting gently in the sand. A wave of shocked murmurs rolled through the stands. Ethan knew. The fight wasn't over. Not yet, but the first clash had ended with something no one expected. He wasn't prey anymore. He was someone the beast would listen to. And that was far more dangerous for Vera than any weapon he could have carried. Asterisk, the crowd didn't know what to make of what they were seeing. A human standing in front of Vera's. Deadliest beast, and the creature wasn't attacking. Some aliens leaned over the railing, eyes wide. Whispering to each other in disbelief, others shouted for the fight to continue. But their voices were weaker now, uncertain. Vera's hands gripped the armrests of her throne until her knuckles turned pale silver. Her pet had never ignored her. Commands before, she rose from her seat, her gaze fixed on Ethan. "What have you done to my beast?" She called down, her voice hard. Ethan didn't answer. He stood still. His eyes locked on the creature before him. The beast's four eyes blinked slowly, its breath steady, its massive claws resting in the sand. And then a sound, low and strange, rumbled from deep in its throat. Not a growl, but something softer. Ethan took a step closer, speaking in the same strange tongue he had used before. The crowd fell silent again, straining to hear the foreign words. Vera's expression twisted into suspicion. "This is impossible," she muttered under her breath. The beast lowered its head slightly, and Ethan reached out, letting the back of his hand brush against its armored jaw. The touch stirred something in his memory, a flash of another time, another place, years ago. On a different world, Ethan's ship had been shot down by raiders. He had crash-landed in the dense, steaming jungles of a hostile moon. The air there had been heavy with the scent of rot, the cries of unseen predators echoing through the trees. He'd been alone, armed only with a survival knife and his will. To live on the third day, while searching for water, he had found a clearing. In the center lay a young beast, smaller than the one before him now. But with the same four glowing eyes, its leg was caught in a steel trap, the metal cutting deep into flesh, blood pooling in the dirt. It had roared at him, weak but defiant. The same sharp roar he had heard earlier in the arena. Most would have killed it to avoid danger, but Ethan had seen something else in its eyes. Pain, not hatred. He'd spoken softly, not knowing if it could understand. It hadn't attacked when he moved closer, just watched him with unblinking eyes. With careful hands, he'd pried open the trap, freeing the creature. It had limped back into the jungle. But before disappearing, it had looked back at him once. That moment had stayed with him. Back in the present, Ethan realized this beast was older, larger, and scarred from battles. But there was something in the way it moved, the way it reacted to his voice, that felt familiar. It was the same creature, the same life he had spared years ago. Vera shouted down from her platform, her voice cutting through his thoughts. "This is no miracle. You're tricking it somehow." Ethan finally looked up at her, his face calm. "It remembers," he said simply. His voice carrying across the arena, the crowd erupted in noise, some mocking him, others murmuring with wonder. Vera's jaw tightened, her power in the arena, came from fear, from the knowledge that her pet could kill anyone at her command. If the beast refused to obey, that power began to crumble. She waved to her guards, but the beast growled. A deep warning sound that froze them where they stood. Ethan stepped even closer, his chains dragging in the sand. He placed his hand fully against the side of the beast's face, feeling the rough, warm texture of its scales. The creature made the same soft sound again, lowering its massive head further. The crowd's mood shifted. The bloodlust was fading, replaced by curiosity, even respect. Ethan's voice was steady as he spoke again in the alien tongue. The beast's tail moved slowly, no longer lashing in anger. Vera's eyes narrowed. "This changes nothing," she said, but there was doubt in her voice. "Oh, it changes everything," Ethan replied, "because now..." The beast wasn't just ignoring her commands, it was listening to him. And in an arena where loyalty was more dangerous than any weapon, that was the first crack in her throne. The crowd could feel it. The tension had shifted. Ethan wasn't just surviving anymore. He was turning the entire fight into something else, something Vera could no longer fully control. And deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. The arena was no longer filled with the same bloodthirsty shouts it had at the start. The energy had shifted, replaced with a strange tension. Thousands of alien eyes were locked on the human and the beast. The creature stood still beside Ethan, its huge armored head lowered slightly. It was not attacking, not roaring, not obeying Vera's orders. Instead, it seemed to be waiting, watching, as if taking its cue from him. Ethan could feel the shift in the air. The crowd wasn't sure if they wanted to see him dead anymore. Some of them were leaning forward in their seats, not to watch him die, but to see what he would do next. Vera's voice cut through the tension like a knife. "This is not a show of mercy. This is weakness," she shouted. Her words were meant to stir the crowd, to reignite their hunger for blood. But the response was not as strong as before. A few voices shouted in agreement, but many stayed quiet. Ethan took a slow breath, letting the silence stretch. Then he raised his voice so it carried across the entire arena. "This beast knows me," he said, his tone calm but firm. "I spared its life once, and it remembers." The words echoed, drawing murmurs from the stands. Aliens whispered to one another, some scoffing, others clearly intrigued. "You think that means you can win?" Vera mocked from her throne. Ethan didn't answer her, not directly. Instead, he turned to the beast and spoke in that same strange language again. The words rolled from his tongue with confidence. The crowd fell silent, trying to catch the meaning. The beast let out a deep rumble, lowering itself even further until its chest brushed the sand. It was a gesture that none of them had ever seen from it before. Gasps erupted from the stands. Ethan stepped closer and placed a hand on the beast's massive neck. He kept speaking in that low, commanding tone. The creature's tail swayed slowly, not in aggression, but in calm. The crowd began to murmur louder. This was not a fight anymore. It was something else entirely. Vera's jaw tightened, her authority slipping with every second. She had built her power on fear, on the belief that her pet would destroy anyone she commanded. But now, the beast was showing loyalty to someone else. Ethan turned his head slightly toward the stands, his voice rising. "Your warlord commands with fear," he said. "I command with trust." The statement struck like a spark in dry grass. The crowd reacted instantly, some cheering, some shouting in protest, but all of them engaged. Vera stood from her throne, fury flashing in her eyes. "You dare speak against me in my own arena?" she demanded. Ethan met her gaze without flinching. "I dare speak the truth," he replied. The crowd roared at the defiance, some in outrage, but many in excitement. The beast shifted slightly, Standing taller, its eyes locked not on Ethan, but on Vera, the warlord noticed, and a flicker of unease crossed her face. Her own pet was no longer looking to her for orders. Ethan took a step forward, dragging his chains in the sand. The metallic clink, echoing in the silence that followed. "Ask yourself," he called out to the crowd. "Who would you follow? The one who threatens your life, or the one who spares it?" The question hung in the air. Some in the stands began to chant softly, not Vera's name. But who man? It started as a ripple, then grew louder. Vera's guards shifted nervously. Glancing between their leader and the changing crowd, the beast let out a loud, echoing roar. But this time, it was not a roar of attack. It was a roar that sounded like a declaration. The crowd answered with an explosion of cheers. The chant of whom, man rolling like thunder through the arena. Vera's face darkened. She could feel the ground of her authority cracking beneath her feet. The human had done more than survive. He had begun to turn her people's hearts. Ethan stepped back beside the beast, his hand resting on its armored neck. "I told you," he said loudly, looking at Vera. "Your pet knows who I am, and so will you." The chant grew even louder, and for the first time in years, Vera realized she was no longer in full control of her own arena, the crowd's. Loyalty was shifting, and the man who stood beside her greatest weapon was the one holding it. Vera stood at the edge of her throne platform. Her silver eyes burned with fury. But behind that fire was something she had not felt in years. Doubt the crowd was not chanting her name anymore. They were chanting for the human. Every beat of the chant, whose man struck her like a drum in the chest. Her pet, her most feared weapon, stood beside him as if it had chosen a new master. She gripped the hilt of her blade, the metal cool and solid against her palm. If she killed him now, the crowd might see it as justice, but they might also see it as fear, and fear of a leader was very different from fear of a tyrant. If they smelled weakness, her enemies among the other warlords would strike. She looked at the beast, the creature that had been loyal to her since it was taken from the wild. It had fought for her, killed for her, bled for her. Now it refused to even look at her. Instead, its eyes stayed fixed on the human, Vera's. Voice cut through the air, loud but shaking ever so slightly. "Release him from his chains," she ordered her guards. The command shocked the crowd into silence for a heartbeat. The guards hesitated, unsure if they had heard correctly. "Do it," Vera repeated, her voice hardening. They moved cautiously, keeping one eye on the beast, unlocking the heavy shackles from Ethan's wrists. The chains clattered to the sand. Ethan flexed his hands, the skin raw where the metal had dug in. His eyes never left Vera's. "You think this will change anything?" she asked, her tone sharp. "It already has." Ethan replied. The crowd murmured, the tension thickening. Vera began to descend the stairs from her throne, each step slow and deliberate. Her armor gleamed in the harsh sunlight, and every movement radiated controlled power. The crowd watched in complete silence. When she reached the arena floor, the beast shifted. Letting out a low growl, Ethan placed a calming hand on its neck, and the growl faded. Vera stopped a few paces away from him. "You have taken something?" "From me," she said quietly. "Though the whole arena could hear, you have turned my weapon against me." "I didn't turn it," Ethan said. "It remembered who I was." The words seemed to cut deeper than any blade. Vera's jaw tightened. Her pride told her to strike, to prove she was still the strongest. But another part of her, the part that had kept her alive through countless battles, knew that one wrong move here could destroy her. If she killed the human now, in front of a crowd that was beginning to side with him, they might see her as a coward. If she let him live, he could become a symbol she couldn't control. Either choice was dangerous. She began to circle him slowly, her boots leaving faint prints in the sand. Ethan didn't move, the beast shadowing his every step, "Tell me, human," she said. "What do you want?" Ethan's voice was steady. "I want freedom," he said. "Not just for me," he added. Glancing at the beast, the crowd murmured again, louder this time. Freedom was a word that carried power. Vera studied him, her mind racing. Killing him would silence him forever, but it would also make him a martyr. Letting him go could make her seem merciful or weak, and if the beast followed him out, she would lose more than just her pride. The tension in the arena was like a drawn bowstring. The crowd waited for her decision. Finally, she spoke. "Then earn it," she said. Gasps rippled through the stands. "You will fight me," Vera continued. "Here, now." Before all who watch, Ethan's eyes narrowed. "And if I win?" he asked. "You leave this arena alive," she said, "and the beast goes with you. And if I lose?" Ethan asked. "Then the beast will feed on your bones," Vera said without hesitation. The crowd erupted. Half in excitement, half in shock, Ethan looked at the beast, then back at her. "You're sure about this?" he asked. Her eyes hardened. "I will not be shamed in my own arena," she said. The sun beat down, the air heavy with the smell of sand and sweat. Ethan could feel every eye on him, waiting. He stepped forward, the beast growling softly but staying. "In place, I accept," he said. The crowd roared, and in that moment, the stage was set, not for a battle between warrior and prisoner, but for a fight that would decide who truly held power in this place. The roar of the crowd rolled like thunder through the arena. Every alien in the stands leaned forward, eager to witness the fight that could change everything. Ethan stood still, his hands loose at his sides. His eyes locked on Vera. She drew her blade, the metal glinting under the sunlight, sharp enough to cut stone. Her armor shifted as she moved, each step measured, confident, dangerous. The beast stayed behind Ethan, its tail lashing once. As if sensing the tension in the air, the rules were unspoken. No one would interfere. Not the guards, not the crowd, not even the beast. Unless things turned, Vera's voice was calm, almost cold. "Last chance to walk away, human," she said. "You know I won't," Ethan replied. The crowd cheered at his defiance, the chant of whom, starting again. Vera moved first, her blade slicing through the air in a deadly arc. Ethan sidestepped, feeling the rush of wind from the strike pass his face. He had no weapon but his hands and the jagged spear shaft still lying in the sand from before. He dove for it, rolling as Vera's boots slammed down where he had been a moment ago. Grabbing the shaft, he rose to his feet, holding it like a staff. Vera smirked, her eyes gleaming. "A stick against steel," she taunted. Ethan didn't answer. She lunged again, this time faster, the point of her blade aimed for his chest. He twisted, using the spear shaft to push her strike aside. The sound of metal scraping wood echoed. The crowd gasped. He had deflected her without breaking the shaft. Vera came at him in a flurry of strikes, each faster than the last. Ethan blocked, dodged, and stepped aside, letting her waste energy. The heat of the sun made sweat bead on his skin. Her movements were powerful, but he could see the rhythm in them. And in that rhythm, he found his moment as she swung low. He caught her blade between the forked splinters of the spear shaft, twisting hard. The blade was wrenched to the side, forcing her off balance in that instant. Ethan swept her legs from under her with a low kick. She hit the sand, rolling quickly to avoid a follow-up strike. The crowd roared, half in shock, half in delight. Vera rose, fury flashing in her eyes. She attacked again, but there was hesitation now. She had not expected a human to match her blow for blow. Ethan could see the doubt creeping into her movements. Their fight circled closer to the beast, which growled low, watching every step. Then, Svira lunged again. Ethan sidestepped and let her momentum carry her forward. He placed the spear shaft across her chest and pushed, forcing her back toward the beast. The creature's massive head lowered, its 4 eyes locked on her. The entire arena seemed to hold its breath. Vera froze, her weapon still raised, but her eyes flicking to the beast. It did not roar, did not attack. It simply stood, as if waiting for Ethan's signal. The message was clear to everyone watching. Ethan could end this with a single word: Vera's. Pride battled with the reality before her. She could fight on and risk losing in front of thousands. Or she could surrender and try to salvage what little power she had left. Ethan stepped back, lowering the spear shaft. "This is your last chance." "Vera," he said loudly enough for all to hear, "stand down." The crowd erupted into a mix of shouts and cheers. Vera's eyes darted to the stands, to her guards, and finally to the beast. She saw the truth in its stillness. It would not defend her against him. Slowly, she lowered her blade. The noise from the crowd exploded, the chant of whom? Man. Shaking the arena walls, Ethan nodded once. "You asked why I wasn't trembling," he said, his voice steady. "It's because I've already tamed the thing you fear most." The beast stepped forward, bowing its head slightly beside him, the guards unsure what to do. Looked to Vera, but she said nothing. Ethan turned and began walking toward the arena. Gates, the beast following close behind. The crowd parted like a tide, their eyes wide, some in awe, others in disbelief as he stepped into the shadows of the gate. The roar of the arena still ringing in his ears. Ethan knew he hadn't just survived. He had left as something far more, a legend.